and welcome again, everybody, to this episode of the Growth Focus podcast, where we talk tech and bring tech leaders together to share their insights and share their expertise so that we can all benefit as an industry and grow into the future. Today's episode, I'm really pleased to have Jason Hart, managing partner of ARG, and he's going to be sharing some nuggets with us today, so please make sure you stay to the very end. So without further ado, Jason, can I ask you to give us a brief story about where you came from, how you got into the industry, and where you are today?
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be connected here with your audience. I started out in Indiana, and I started out in pharmacy school and somehow ended up in technology and never looked back since. But I was working with one of the VARs up in Chicago, CDW, probably have heard of them, and spent about 16 years doing direct sales across the U.S. With IT leaders, helping them with digital transformation projects. And I wanted to work my way up through the corporate ladder. And so I thought, hey, I'll get an executive coach. I'll go to grad school. I'll get into the Emerging Leader program. And it was about 2013. So I'll just give you kind of my story of, evolution in the space of 24 years. But it was back in 2013, and there was this thing called cloud, right? And I started seeing stuff happening in my world where things were changing into hosted alternatives instead of on-prem. And so the Emerging Leader program that I was in required us to have a project, and I did it on cloud, why we need to go to the cloud. And that turned into the cloud team at CDW, and it grew to like 100 employees over time. So I share that story because there was a kind of a reformation, like a cross in my path. I had to decide, do I want to go down the corporate path and be a sales executive and work my way up? Or do I listen to my executive coaches? And they said I was more of an entrepreneur, which I thought was an interesting term, right? You're an entrepreneur, but what's an entrepreneur, right? So I was intrigued.
What's an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So it's actually an entrepreneur who works within a larger organization, and it might show up as like a skunk works division or something like that. And that's exactly what we ended up doing. And that was the path that I took. And ever since then, I wanted to be an entrepreneur and be a business owner. So it continued to go down that path to where I'm at today. So happy to share more along that part of the journey.
Yeah. So tell us what as I say, tech changes at such a rate, as you said, this thing called cloud, I'm trying to move people from on-prem to cloud. And there's got the early adopters and those who are doing it. But even today, as we all probably know, there are still people who are finding that shift still to go from on-prem into the cloud. But lo and behold, tech does not stay still. It continues moving. And now AI is the new cloud. I've been speaking to a lot of people, and, AI is in its infancy, although it's been around for a couple of years now. It's still in the upward curve. And I know you've got a lot to talk about with AI as well. But before we get on to that, you've had an interesting journey post CDW, and share that with us.
All right. Yeah. So, when you grow up in the North, you always have a dream of living on the beach, right? And that was my vision board. And it took me about 3 years to get in a position where I could move the family down. We lived in Sarasota for a couple of years. And that allowed me to have a little bit of space to go off on my own and start my own consulting business. But and we talked about this before. There's a thing in Florida called palm tree-itis, right? Yeah. So it's kind of mesmerizing. It's so beautiful. People want to go to the beach every day and watch the sunset, and it's not real conducive to being a startup, right? So I would just say, you think the path to entrepreneurship and having your dream business is a straight line from A to B, but it's not that. There's always ups and downs and challenges. So I encountered quite a few of those along my way.
Yeah, and thanks for being honest with that, because like you say, people have this dream of being an entrepreneur, running their own company, and just think, yes, from the day I start, it might be a little bit hard to get the ball rolling, but then by all means, it's going to roll downhill, and it's going to be great. But it doesn't happen like that, doesn't it? It really does not happen. And those who are successful have usually failed at least once or twice But it's not, but the lesson we learn is that's not the lesson. This lesson is how well we get up from it, isn't it? It's how well we get back on the floor, which is what you did as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's iterations. I always talk about it's like software development. You have like version 1, version 2, version 3. You have an MVP, you have an agile, Scrum methodology, waterfall, whatever. And it's about how many cycles can you go through to iterate your product so that it's ahead of the market. And I think, personally, in your journey, you come into situations where you have opportunities to reinvent yourself. And like you said, pick yourself up. It's really about, okay, version 1, version 2, version 3 along the way. And you just keep improving and you get there eventually. And that's kind of what I've learned. But yeah, there's a lot of challenges along the way, and you just keep connecting with new people and learning, and you just have to have that hunger to keep pushing through.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, what you just said about having the versions. That we just seem to think we come out of school, we come out of college, and that's the version you are, and that you've got to make the very best of that version. But in reality, that's not true. We have to, be like a snake and actually shed our skin sometimes and become bigger and better. Or let's choose a better thing than a snake. Let's choose a butterfly, just becoming a bit more beautiful and a bit more thing. But we can't remain the same thing. We don't grow that way. We have to find those reiterations, as you say, and those new versions and especially in tech. Tech changes. And if we want to be the old dinosaur, that's going to kill us. So let's talk. That's a nice little segue into talking about a little bit AI. I know AI, it doesn't matter who you talk to. AI is on everybody's lips at different levels. We have startup companies doing a lot of SaaS products with AIs. We've got security companies battling AI. Where is AI, in your opinion, today on the curvature of its growth? Is it still in its infancy? Is it a teenager now? Where'd you place it and why?
Yeah, I think we're, if you look at the Gartner hype cycle, right, we're at the beginning of the cycle. I think a lot of organizations are still trying to figure out how to build a practice around AI and go to market with different use cases. So organizationally, people are getting structured. One of the dimensions that not a lot of people talk about is, I have kids that are getting ready to go into college, and you wonder. This is what we were talking about over the weekend with my wife. We were sitting in the pool and we were talking, and I'm like, look, we have to be cognizant of the skills that are going to be needed for the next generation, right? The millennials and different types of learning and different skills. If you go down the path of higher education and they sit in the camp of, we're going to have a classic learning curriculum, and we're going to push back on ChatGPT and AI and all this stuff because it's not, it doesn't fit into our structure. And then you have the other camp that says, we're going to embrace it. We're going to teach these kids how to use these new technologies so that when they get out, they're going to be more valuable in the workplace. So that's another dimension that I was recently talking to a friend about. And then I go out into these Charlotte events with the IT leaders, big companies like Atrium Health, Duke Energy, et cetera. And the talent that they're looking for is different than the talent that your HR department and your recruiting teams have traditionally been looking for. And the way that you interview and the resumes that you're looking for are completely different now. Because, and that there's another dimension of this, software developers. There's like a 50-50 camp. Some of them are totally excited about AI. The other 50 are scared of AI because it can do exactly what they were trained to do, right?
Yeah.
So another dimension, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is this whole verbiage that's out there in the industry, and ironically, we're in the tech industry, so we should know. There's a theory that everyone in tech should know AI inside out and should not be afraid of it. But you're absolutely right. I was literally having a discussion with someone earlier this morning, and there is this whole uninformed, misinformed, uneducated view that it will wipe out these coders' jobs. It will wipe out people within the industry. Yet, really, when you look back at it, it should really be, yes, it's a tool that we need to master. And if we master it and don't let it become a master of us, that's not saying the internet will take over these jobs. Does it make it more efficient? Yes, but it doesn't necessarily take over the jobs. And would you agree that's really how we should be looking at AI? We should be that master of it.
Yeah, I think it's an enabler for the business to be more productive, to layer on more automation, manual tasks right? You have robotic process automation, you have AI, you have generative AI. There's all these different versions that where it can show up. AI is showing up in pretty much any SaaS platform. So you have AI built into Salesforce, you have AI built into all the other cloud FinOps and optimization tools, and you have it integrated with cameras and IoT and connectivity to do predictive failures in engines and on manufacturing plant. Yeah, my friend owns an AI company here in Charlotte, and he works with the automotive industry, like Rolls-Royce and Toyota and those kind of companies, and helps them predict engine failures. And a catastrophic failure could be $200,000 to a company like that. If you can predict that and keep it from happening, that's valuable to the business. And when you look at manufacturing globally and the competitive landscape, and if you can start stripping out manual processes and be more intelligent and do more with less, I think everybody's looking for ways to do that. So you really have to lean in and take advantage of all the great tools that are out there.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think it's a great enabler. I love your phrase there. AI can be and should be a great enabler, but it doesn't replace people. It can make us more efficient. It can make our companies more efficient. We can get places faster and further than ever before by utilizing the best parts of AI. And as you quite rightly said, it's only the beginning of AI. They're just in the toddler stage. It's 2 years old, 3 years old, although it's been around for a while, a lot longer than that, in the public eye as they know it, sort of 2 to 3 years now. So, but it's got a lot to give. I think we've got to be very careful as an industry where we point it. It's almost like a child. If you have a disorganized parent to a disorganized teenager, that teenager can go awry,
Yeah. Yeah, I think what we're talking about a little bit is about the governance side of it, right? When you're talking about rolling out, let's say a GPT engine out to your internal users or maybe your external customer user, there's different databases and different LLM modeling that can happen. And then there's data flows that need to be mapped out correctly. And I see a lot of the folks in IT building kind of a hybrid scenario where they can control certain data and keep that from being unlocked. And there's a lot of privacy and data record mapping and management that needs to happen before AI, like a Microsoft Copilot, can come into your organization. And you don't want somebody looking up, how much does our CTO make? And, it's accessible because they forgot to lock that piece of the data down. And then you start also looking at your external data, and are you protecting your intellectual property? Are you able to govern that data from getting out to the open market where your competitors can get information from your company? So that's really the big concern, I think, for a lot of big organizations with a lot of value in their intellectual property. And how do you structure that? And I think it's really pulling the laggards from the cloud conversation from going on-prem to cloud. I think they're realizing now that they're missing out on the API economy and all the APIs that they can tap into and get access to more intelligence because they're still living on legacy platforms, file shares, and so it's pulling them along, and they have to move quickly now to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. But as I said, they've been there for a while now. They're almost like the dinosaurs of the industry, where they can see everyone else is on it, and they feel like no matter how fast they're trying to pedal up, they're still behind the curve all the time. What do you think is one of their biggest fears of not moving before and not making that change before?
One of their biggest fears, I think a lot of it is driven about cost. When you look at TCO modeling of on-prem versus hosted, and I think there's a little bit of pushback on letting somebody else provide the services and the security and the latency and understanding the design and the complexity. And it's a lot simpler if we just build it, put it in a colo or something like that. But again, I think they're starting to miss out. I'm starting to see more and more customers come up on a refresh cycle and say, do we really want this sitting in a colo on our gear? Or, okay, I learned this model a long time ago when I was doing like software entrepreneur. Somebody told me this model, and they said 10, 100, 1,000, right? It's a productivity concept. When you look at your business and you look at your life, what are you doing that's worth $10 an hour, $100 an hour, and $1,000 an hour. And you build a matrix and you put them in categories. And you're like, if you're doing stuff that's $10 an hour and you're worth $400 an hour, it makes sense to get somebody else to do that activity, right? And if you're a business leader and you're running a P&L and you're looking at contribution margins per employee, how do you drive more productivity per employee? You have to use a construct like that to be able to determine these are the activities that we're going to do in-house. These are the activities that we're going to let a partner do, outsource or augment my team so that we can go faster. And the business has agility built into it because of the partnership. And so I think that I'm kind of answering your question, but the other piece of it that I'm realizing, there's a lot of IT leaders that they understand how to manage IT, but they're not as skilled at managing a service provider or a partner, and managing a partner against an SLA. It's a different skill set, and there's more business acumen that's needed. So we need more MBAs in technology leadership so that they can understand that side of the equation to help move the business forward. And I think finally, you have to look at technology debt and how to avoid technology debt, right? So you have to be forward-looking and future-proofing your technology platform, and that requires sometimes negotiating and getting out of contracts very quickly. That you're not stuck in another 3-year cycle, right? Oh, I didn't pay attention. We've only got 3 months left for this renewal. That's not enough time to vet out the market. You're going to be stuck in an auto-renew clause for 36 months, and guess what? Your competitor went to a new platform that's smarter and more intelligent, and you're stuck for 3 years in a big renewal that you could have avoided. So
that's a really, really good point, Jason. I think people don't think of that. They always look up to their renewals and say, hey, that's coming. I'll deal with that later. I'm busy being busy now. You ever speak to the CIO or someone like that, or a CTO, they're always saying they're fighting fires. And when it comes up for the renewal, like you say, it's 3 months to go, and then it's better the devil you know. Let's stick where we are. And before they know it, they're locked in for another 3 years, as you say. And tech has moved on so much in 3 years. That exponential curve where they think, oh, it's only another 3 years, we'll just stick with it, and we'll look for another solution, a new platform later on. But that you are by then have lost your competitive advantage. The landscape has changed. You're still in this world. So that's a very, very good point that so. That being said, if you were talking to a CIO or a CTO right now, what period of time do you think is a feasible, reasonable time for them to start looking before their renewal date comes up, for them to get all the information that they require?
Well, I had a conversation with a company today. It was like a 40 hospital system. And we mapped out a technology roadmap and started looking at their priorities and started making recommendations on when we need to start doing a market assessment, right? So there's going to be a window of time when it depends on the technology, right? We are looking at phone systems, we're looking at moving them from on-prem to a public cloud. We're looking at layering an MSP, MSSP on top of it to augment their existing small IT group. We're looking at, a SIEM SOC and eyes on glass for continuous monitoring because of a NIST assessment and framework that they now have to adhere to. We're looking at things like they want to poise for high growth acquisition phase. They're wanting to shift into a different private equity owner that wants to go fast. Well, how do you build a framework that's going to align with the business, right? So we started breaking it down and looking at different cycles. Procurement cycles, we'll call them, and you have market assessments, and we build out timelines to show them when we do this type of assessment, we're typically getting into this phase of the project at this time, so we need to work 9 months back. Right now is a great time to work on that
time, right?
Yeah, so it's really about, picture a Gantt chart or a project charter timeline and working backwards through the customer and staging it, and then we have POC, we have demo, we have negotiation cycles, and then we have implementation cycles, and how many people do they have on their staff, right? How many project cycles are they doing in this year? What are they going to be able to execute? Because, I did this with a CIO recently. Poor guy I think we ended up with 5 projects going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because they wanted to move fast. And then he asked me, hey, do you know any project managers? I'm like, I do. I have a provider who has 70 project managers on their bench right now. So we interviewed a couple of project managers, and they help manage all the projects that he has going super fast because his calendar just got filled up, So it's one of those things where like I have to look at the global perspective and kind of work backwards, and then we come up with a plan and help them go faster. Yeah,
brilliant. And I think you're absolutely right there that, I think more education out there in the marketplace, the CIOs and CTOs and stuff about, like you say, future-proofing your life. What is it? Where are you going to go in the next 2 years? Within that contract time, if you don't do something. So is it possible? What's not possible? What does it really look like? It's almost like doing a success plan for them and going, hey, this is what your idea of success is. That's what the timeline you wanted at. This isn't going to quite make it there with this where you are now. We need to start putting those plans in place.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things that popped up as you're talking about it, because, when we talk about that 10, 100, 1000 model, right? Do you want your folks on your IT team to be doing market research, to be Googling and YouTubing on how to do X, Y, and Z, and doing research on which providers can do this AI and that AI? They need to be running IT operations and advancing the business goals, right? That's their core function. It's not doing market research and talking to vendors and suppliers over and over. That's what we do as trusted advisors. We live in that space. We go to the shows, we interview, we vet them out, and we bring that to them and say, okay, here's what you should look at. So we can get them to the red zone, right, to the 20-yard line very quickly. And then from there, we can help them get across the goal line. So it's working with partners and working in an ecosystem that can help you go faster is also a subset of where the market changes and what's happening right now. So more and more corporations are looking at the trusted advisors like us to be able to go faster and do a lot of that stuff that, I'm talking to people that have never done a SIP to phone, UCAS implementation, a market assessment, right? They've never done it in their career, or they do it every 6 years and they've only done 2. But we've done career, we've done it. We've been doing it for 30 years. So that's where you just want to lean in and align with the right, resources too. So
now that being said, let's talk about you. Let's talk about a day in the life of Jason Hart. What is it that you do? And give us a typical day that Jason has.
Well, I have one of those neurodiverse brains, where I can go mind map the entire market. And so I have to stop myself from going too deep on learning new things and flipping the switch into execution, right? So you can do strategy and entrepreneur and new, but you need to execute and move it down the goal line. So I split a lot of my time going kind of back and forth, but I love to do market research. I was looking up new companies today, and there's companies that can do things like, let's think about when you onboard a new employee in your organization. And the old way of doing it is you put them in a classroom and you've got 20 new employees, right? You're trying to advance and speed the market, right? So you just hire 20 people and you have your depot services sending out laptops and all that imaging and all that kind of stuff. And then you put them in a classroom and you try to train them, and you have coaches, and then you put them in through quizzes, and then you put them on the phone, and there's a cycle, right? So there's AI that has come in and templatized all the different screen pops that you're going to have to sit down and go through on a day in the life. And it puts it into a software package, and you put it in front of your employees, and they become proficient much faster than ever before, right? That's new technology that just came to market. There's new technology that came to market that, get this, let's say that you want to do a global BPO and you have a BPO partner out of the Philippines taking your customer calls, right? Well, there's, sometimes there's an accent that causes some friction between the end user, right? And the call center agent having to repeat themselves over and over. There's real-time AI that can translate that accent and make it a US sounding accent in real time with no lag, which is incredible. it can block out background noise. It can block out background noise on the other end on a mobile phone.
Mhm.
There's just things that just keep popping up and we're learning about, and we put them in front of our clients. And it's just fun to see them come back and say, hey, you've reduced a manual process in our organization using that technology. I no longer have to scrub these phone numbers and put them into the CRM in our
Mhm.
playbook. It automatically does that. And just to get a little scary, those robo dialers that
Yeah.
just keep popping up. There's a lot of regulations that are cutting that out, but there's also AI that can say, if I want to call Gary, I'm not going to call from a Colorado, whatever zip code. I'm going to call from the neighboring city where he's most likely going to pick up. And then,
Yeah.
and then you'll pick up, right?
Yeah.
But it's using AI to get smarter on that type of stuff too. And but my world is really that constant learning. I love to
Yeah.
keep learning more, and then helping the clients move the ball down the goal line. It's a
I think it's
combination.
important, Jason, that like you said, if your client's responsibility is to make themselves better at their business and serving their customers and serving their clients, they don't necessarily have the time or should have the time to go and see what's new out there in the market, because there's the new, but there's also a lot of stuff which is irrelevant, a lot of stuff that doesn't work, a lot of stuff that isn't suitable. And they're probably could use somebody like you that says, hey, don't worry about 85% of that crap. It's just crap. It won't work for you. This is the 15% you need to worry about. All right. So it's efficient, it's timely, and it's cost efficient. And it works better that way rather than trying to. It's like having a team member. Have a great team member that's allocated a certain role so that you don't have to do it, but they enjoy doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it brings up another point, because I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the big banks are here. My neighbors work at the big banks. They help build AI on the sentiment analysis engine on, Erica, the mobile app, and, walk around with a book this thick on AI. And we get into some really good conversations. And I'm like, Vishal, like, why are you building a sentiment analysis engine for dialects around the globe when there's already engines that are built that do that, right? I'm like, the speed to market or speed to value of a lot of the things that companies are trying to build in-house, and it's already available. I'm like, I would argue or challenge them to say, hey, look, bring one of those suppliers in on a shorter contract basis, let them bring value out of that technology and get to market faster. And then you can start building a team around that and augment it versus trying to build it from the ground up. And it just, boggles my mind when I hear people trying to start from scratch and build a team. And I'm like, that's a slow path to revenue or to value in the market, my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, one of the things I keep on hearing, and I'm glad you brought it up, Jason, is not necessarily speed to market anymore. Before it was, I've got something new, let's take it to speed to market. It's speed to value. How can they get value as quickly as they possibly can? That not only get value out, but validates what you have. And then you can put the resources behind it to make it grow, because you've already got the in. There's already a buy-in somewhere along the line, and you get there. So concentrating, and I'm so glad you brought that up, concentrating on giving speed to value. And if you haven't picked up anything else in this podcast, this interview, take that one home. Speed to value is very, very important. So I can't believe, again, 30 minutes has gone by really, really quickly from here. So I've got a couple more questions for you, Jay. This would be so much fun. Where do you see this is I like to ask this question especially when we've got delved into AI and business and whatnot. Where do you see the competitive advantage of AI moving forward in the tech world?
I think a lot of it has to do with your data. It's about your data. You have to have the plumbing built in a manner where you can get access to all your data. It's not sitting in different repositories and silos, right? Because that's not very smart. What's smart is when you have integrated data points, and now you have actionable insights. Now you can pull reporting and build dashboards, and you can do very intelligent decisions based on KPIs and different things like that. So I think that's the competitive advantage, is understanding how to leverage your existing data to make better decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Great decisions come from great data, right? If you're going to have to spend running around like a headless chicken looking for the data, chances are the decisions you make isn't going to be the best ones you've had. So yeah, absolutely, totally agree on that one. So look, as a final question, and it's a bit of a loaded question, Jason. I like to ask all my interviewees. Thank you very much so far for your time and your insights. As someone who has had great success being in the corporate world, then gone out on their own, failed fast, got back on the feet again, now striving forward, with a passion and a goal and a very clear mission for what you want to and what you want your clients to be. For those out listening here who may be sitting at home or sitting in their office thinking, I just don't understand. I'm doing everything I can to make success, and I just don't know what I should be doing or stop doing. What is the one piece of nugget of success you could give our listeners and watchers?
Yeah. As I go through, I guess, my ventures, right? My failures and my successes, and I evaluate which ones I really had great success, is when I paid a coach. I paid an executive coach. I paid another executive coach. I wanted to do an Ironman. I paid the best coach I could find to get me across the finish line. I wanted to lose 20 pounds. I hired a coach, a personal trainer. Like, it works, And so that's not just coaching, but it's also consultants. You want to find somebody who has a proven process and has the 10,000 hours of mastery under their belt, so that when you go to them, they're not making it up. As they always say, jump off the cliff and build the wings on the way down. You don't want that. You want somebody who has dedicated to helping people get that result repeatedly, and they have mastery over that. So I would just say, find the best coach consultant for what you're looking to achieve, and be willing to pay them and to get that result together and hold you accountable, right? The process is important, and then the accountability is important. And that's where I've gotten the best results of my life, I think.
Yeah. And that is an awesome piece of advice there. I have yet to come across a leader in tech, or in fact, a leader anywhere, that has not had a mentor, had a coach, had that accountability. Someone, I would always say, like you said, you don't want to jump off the cliff and build those wings. For me, it's shortcutting it. I don't want to know where the landmines are. I want them to tell me where the landmines are, so I don't step on them, because I don't want to be blown up again and have to start all over again. Like one of those video games, start new life and start again. You want to get to the end as quickly as you can, and you want someone who can guide you, who has walked that path before. And so I think it's a fantastic piece of advice to leave with people here. Thank you very much, Jason. So, Jason, how can people get hold of you if they want to know more about you, about what you do in ARG, etc., or your success, how you carved it out in life? How can people get hold of you? What's the best way of getting hold of you?
Yeah, I'd just say my LinkedIn profile is the best way. It's the URL is linkedin.com/IN for LinkedIn. /smarter with data, right?
Smarter with
it's
data.
All about data. Smarter with data.
It's all about the data. The smart data, right? Not the bad data, the smart data. I will make sure I will put that in the notes as well, so people can get hold of you. It will be in the links there. But Jason, thank you very much for your time and spending and sharing your insights with us and spending your time with us. The insights you've given us and shared with us has been absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much for that. And for you guys out there, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for bearing with us and coming through this whole episode. I hope you took down a lot of nuggets there. I hope you took down a lot of what Jason was saying. But even if you took one of what you've heard today and you thought it was valuable, make sure you do one of four or all four, which is to like, to comment, to share and subscribe, and make sure that all of us within this industry can grow together. So until the next episode, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you very much, guys. Speak to you all soon.